So there's a lot of realtors that are listening to this or going to listen to this. How can they jump in, or how can they be active in taking part of what's going to come next month?
Okay. So anyone who's in real estate, and particularly realtors, the key to this ordinance is understanding if this passes, you're going to have to comply with it. Especially if you're a property manager, if you work with anyone that wants you to help them with their lease, your leases will have to comply. So your lease will have to take into consideration some of the prohibited provisions. We talked about that late fee cap. If we are not able to remove that, then your lease will need to reflect that change. So I think it's really important to understand that this will have an impact for Cook County properties. If you're doing business outside of Cook County, then you would just have to comply with whatever those other local laws are. But the other thing is just I just want to point out from an academic or more of a well-rounded perspective, when it comes to landlord-tenant ordinances like this, ultimately what they end up doing is increasing the costs of housing. The realtors have been advocating against a repeal of the existing prohibition on rent control. For many, many years, I think if you're in real estate and you're doing business in Illinois, you'd have to be living under a rock not to know that rent control has been a really big topic for the past several years. I think if this passes, it adds to the costs of housing. And ultimately, not only do regulations like this add to the cost, but you consider increasing property taxes and all of these other burdens, and rent control would severely limit your ability to operate in a way that keeps up with all of those added costs. So I think you have to put that into perspective. And there are studies that have been done that, will talk about how these type of ordinances really have increased the costs of housing.
Do you think any of these suburbs, so the people running these municipalities, do you think this is something they're happy about, or do you think this is something they don't know about, or do you think this is something they'll do something about, maybe putting their own ordinances in place?
I think it depends on, how many existing regulations they might already have. I had talked about the South suburbs, and there are a lot of regulations in the South suburbs.
Yes, there is.
I think that there's a mix of opinions. Some are just like, I don't really care. Honestly, they don't, I think others could use it as an excuse not to allow for rentals. There are some places, some communities that do not want to have rental properties. They think that they cause problems. There are a lot of assumptions with renters. They're more short term. So I think that it'll just be more of an excuse as to, why allow renters when you've got to comply with these complex regulations anyways. So, I think that's harmful. Not only to the real estate industry, but also the communities in which we live and work, right? Rental housing provides a really important piece of the housing stock.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's really a mixed bag.